Hello, my name is Elizabeth Cordero, and I'm excited to present my project as a part of my final term before graduating with a Bachelor of Applied Science in Computing Technology and Software Development. My project is titled Understanding the Link Between App Usage and Perceived Productivity. This idea was inspired by a conversation I had with my 8-year-old daughter about whether using a device while doing homework helps or hinders focus. She firmly believed it helped her, while I was more skeptical. That discussion got me thinking about how we perceive productivity when using apps and devices and whether those perceptions align with reality. So I decided to explore this topic further and turn it into my final project. The objectives of my project are pretty straightforward but important. First, I want to share the key findings from the data I've collected so far, which highlight the relationship between app usage and perceived productivity. These can help us better understand how digital tools impact our daily lives. And second, I'll discuss the tools and methods I've used for data collection and analysis. This includes how I collected app usage data, the specific techniques I used to measure productivity perceptions, and the statistical methods applied to analyze the relationship between these variables. By the end of this presentation, I hope to give a better picture of both my process and my findings. The goal of this project is to answer the question, is there a link between the time spent on smartphone apps and perceived productivity? This idea came from observing how much time people, myself and my daughter included, spend on apps daily and wondering how this might affect our ability to feel productive. To gather data, I designed a Google Forms survey that asked participants to rate their productivity on a scale of 1 to 10. I also had them report how much time they spent on various app categories like social media, work apps, games, and more. Once I collected the data, I analyzed it to uncover some potential trends. I've also created a frequency table and a chart to visualize app usage patterns across different categories, which helps us to see where people are spending their time. This foundation is essential for identifying whether specific types of apps might be linked to higher or lower productivity rates. I'll go over the materials and software I used to complete this project. The hardware. Everything was done on my personal laptop, which I've configured with all the necessary tools for this project. The software. For data analysis, I used R and RStudio, which are powerful tools for statistical analysis and data visualization. To make sure I could perform the analysis correctly, I installed several relevant packages, and these packages helped with tasks like calculating correlations, running regressions, and creating visualizations to represent the data clearly. For data collection, I relied on Google Forms. This tool allowed me to design and distribute a user-friendly survey, making it easy for participants to input their data. Google Forms also streamlines the process of gathering responses and exporting the data with a CSV file, which is a format that's compatible with R. And altogether, these tools and materials form the foundation of my project and were very helpful to me from collecting data to analyzing and interpreting it. On the next couple of slides, you will see the visualization of the results from Google Forms followed up by RStudio. Here you can see the Google Forms survey as seen by participants alongside the summary graphs that are generated by Google Forms. On average, participants rated their productivity at 6.2 out of 10. The survey also revealed that app usage varies significantly, with social media and work-related tools being the most frequently reported categories. These visualizations are important as they provide a picture of both the survey questions and the responses, and this serves as the foundation for my deeper analysis in RStudio, which I'll discuss in the next slides. For this project, I stayed consistent with the original scope and direction as outlined at the start. The goal was to examine the potential link between app usage and perceived productivity, and no significant changes were made to the project implementation process. However, some minor adjustments were implemented to improve data collection and analysis. For example, this included restructuring multiple choice options and removing any redundant questions on the Google Forms survey. I did have some successes. I unfortunately did also have some disappointments. A success was collecting enough data to identify the initial trends, like the correlation between app usage and perceived productivity. This allowed me to generate enough data to test my hypothesis. Another success was learning R and RStudio for data analysis and visualization. These are tools I'd never used before. I have zero experience with them. I've become a little bit more comfortable and I think I can add it to my resume. Some disappointments, on the other hand, was limited participations in my survey. While I received enough entries for analysis, a larger dataset would have provided more robust and reliable results. Another disappointment was the difficulty in analyzing open-ended responses. They were time-consuming to process and they were subjective. It made it hard to get clear information and data from it. If I'd removed these earlier, I think I would have had less disappointments. Before discussing the results, I wanted to explain what correlation and regression are and why I utilize them for this project. Correlation measures the strength and direction of the relationship between two variables. In this case, it measures how productivity and app usage are related. By calculating the correlation coefficient, I can determine if there's a relationship between time spent on apps and perceived productivity. A positive correlation means that as one variable increases, the other also tends to increase. This helps me understand if there's a pattern or a connection. Regression is a statistical technique that helps you understand how one variable, such as app usage, predicts another variable, such as productivity. It fits a line to the data that can be used to make predictions. In this project, regression allows me to predict productivity based on app usage. By analyzing the regression line, I was able to estimate how much a person's productivity would change if they spent more or less time on apps. I chose to use these for my project because I'm trying to explore whether there's a link between time spent on smartphone apps and productivity. Correlation helps me see if there's a relationship, while regression provides a tool to predict productivity based on app use. These methods give me a statistical evidence to back up my observations, which strengthen my findings. The correlation coefficient between productivity and app usage is 0.9. This indicates a strong positive relationship. As the time spent on apps increases, productivity tends to increase as well, though it's not necessarily a direct cause and effect relationship. The regression model for the linear regression shows that for each additional hour spent on apps, productivity increases by 0.9 units. This is the slope of the regression line, indicating a positive relationship between these two variables. The intercept of 5.2 means that if someone didn't use apps at all, their estimated productivity score would be 5.2. And this suggests that even without app usage, people have a certain level of productivity. The p-value is 0.0374, suggesting that the link between app usage and productivity is statistically significant. This means that it's likely a real relationship and not just a random occurrence in the data. The r-squared value is 0.81, which means that 81% of the variation in productivity is explained by how much apps are used. 81% suggests a large level of predictability. In simple terms, the results suggest that while participants might feel more productive when using apps, especially social media, the actual impact on productivity is complex. They could potentially be more productive if they limited their app usage. However, to draw any firm conclusions, additional data and analysis would be needed, which falls outside the scope of this project. On the other hand, app usage, particularly with social media, may enhance productivity in certain contexts, such as marketing, networking, or staying informed. The findings indicate that people tend to perceive themselves as more productive when engaging with social media, even if the actual productivity boost may not be as significant as they believe. Some of the challenges I thought I would face would be software or hardware related, but was in fact steady participation in the survey. It was difficult to maintain a consistent number of responses throughout the data collection period, even with reminders sent out weekly. Now, looking back, some of my do-overs, I think I would modify the survey by removing the open-ended response section. While open-ended questions can provide some pretty valuable information, they take longer for participants to answer, and it makes it more difficult to analyze and visualize the data effectively. I would also consider using an app that the participants can download onto their smart devices to track it automatically. Thank you for your time and attention. It's been a great experience this term.